This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. $300 episodes. This is episode 300 of my Trend Following podcast. Started as a lark. Really, truly, there was no great organization or thought process. I'd done very brief podcasts, episodes, 4 or 5 years ago, and I just decided in January of 2012, let's crank it up again. Let's go long form. Let's do interviews. I had no earthly idea how this would unfold. Yes, I had some experience talking with very knowledgeable, very well-known people in the past. But this podcast is a whole different animal because it has gone long past just trend following. 4 Nobel Prize winners in economics, and I will work my level-headed best in 2015 to get a few more Nobel Prize winners on, just for the simple reason that it's just fun to say, hey, there's been 6, 7 Nobel Prize winners to appear on my podcast. But no, seriously, the 4 that I've had on have been fantastic interviews, great insights. Daniel Kahneman, Vernon Smith, Harry Markowitz, and Robert Aumann. All great. You should listen to them if you've not. Going back in time a little bit, though, back to the beginning, this podcast starting, I still remember when it really changed. It was my first Jack Schwager interview. That was where all of a sudden the listens just went boom, and there was a jump, there was a spike. And everything really since then has been a build off that. And I would say probably my second most important interview was the Daniel Kahneman episode. Because once he appeared, it was pretty easy to ask other people to appear because you just list the prior guest episodes. And if Daniel Kahneman has appeared and you're asking someone else to appear, it's kind of tough to say no. I love it. But hey, at the end of the day, it's about delivering good information, a very unique perspective. I'm part of that, but my guests are part of it. And together, it's delivering this unique perspective, these great insights that you will not find other places. Oh, sure, you can find information. People give other interviews. Yes, I get it. But I do my level-headed best to try and bring out in each guest something unique, some aha moment where you just sit back and I sit back and be just a listener as well and say, wow, that was great. That was great. So 300 episodes in, and I'm not slowing down. I've already got the guest list lined up for who will be on in 2015 and who I will ask. And of course, I want your recommendations. If you have good ideas, send me them, email them. I'm easy to find, info@trendfollowing.com. Now, to change subjects, trend following. Trend following, the often hated strategy that I've sort of bet my career on. You can't kill it, can you? Boy, there's a lot of people out there that want to kill trend following. They just want to see it go away. I mean, brokers don't like trend following. They don't make any commissions off it. Buy and hold guys, well, they don't want anybody to take away their assets away from buy and hold. They get big fees off that. And look, I'm not trying to pump up just the fund managers in the trend following space so they can earn fees as well. I'm after the philosophical idea, the strategy. What a brilliant strategy. God, how many times over the years have I heard, well, Mike, you don't look at survivorship bias. There's a whole bunch of other trend followers out there that are failing, and you're not talking about those. Well, Mike, you didn't talk. Trend following's dead. It doesn't work anymore. It's over. Yeah, okay. Well, it hasn't worked out that way, has it? Trend following just keeps on keeping on. And in a world where stocks are at all-time highs, where the Fed has engineered more market behavior than we will ever know, where there are no more interest rates and we're headed towards negative interest rates, if not already there for a sizable part of the world's population. And there's no volatility. Well, there's been little peaks of volatility recently, and we've seen some big moves in things like crude oil, for example. And I was just reading about that today. The fundamental reasons as to why oil will go to 50, why OPEC will break up, shale production in the US. Man, who knows? And none of those people that are making all these pronouncements now at price levels of crude now, they were not making those announcements when trend following traders got short. Because all trend followers had was the price action. The price action indicated time to go short. Period. We don't know why. We're just going to take the short position. September of 2014. What a great trend following month. You've probably heard on some of my podcast episodes, fantastic performance across the board. Again, right when trend following is apparently all about the lucky survivors, right when trend following is dead, it's not. So now, with stocks at all-time highs, with crazy Fed intervention approaching, we're past the 5-year mark, we're headed towards the decade mark. Do you want to trust the system? Because that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Can you imagine a situation where stocks at all-time highs? Can you imagine where that changes? Can you imagine when that changes? Can you imagine how that changes? Have you thought through the possibility for your own net worth? Or do you just open the statement each month and just thank your lucky stars? You don't know how equities have gone up, but you just say, I'm going to keep on keeping on. I'm going to trust the system, the Bernanke-Yellen team, I'm going to trust it. They're going to take care of me. They're going to make stocks go up forever. And I'd say to you, stocks have gone down twice, 50% in the last 15 years. Why are you trusting? Now, hold on. You people out there that want to call me a perma bear or something to that effect. I am not being a perma bear at all. I'm simply saying stocks are at all-time highs. If everyone decides to collect their paper profits, do you think we all get out at that top? Do you think we all get out the high? It doesn't work that way. The math doesn't work that way. Which gets into one of the secrets of trend following trading, which is a portfolio perspective, not relying on one market or one market indice alone. Don't rely on one market. The best in the business don't do that. The best in the business wake up each year and they don't know where their profits are going to come from. They don't know where their losses are going to come from. And they hope when you mix in the profits and the losses into the big washing machine stew of performance, you end up with some positives. But guess what? You can't guarantee there's going to be a positive in month 1 or month 2 or month 3 or month 4 or month 5 or even in year 1. There's no guarantee like that. I have people that approach me about trend following trading and they say, hey, I want to make sure if this doesn't work, I want to stop. So I'll know, let me try for 30 days and let me see. No. Go away. If you've done any homework on trend following trading at all, and you want to try it for 30 days to see if it's for you, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not for you. The only thing for you is to go back to trusting the system. Give your money to Yellen and just take what it gives you. And just like the other day, I saw this research about being on a plane. And where you sit and what the people sitting next to you, what they're doing affects you. If your buddy next to you or if whoever is sitting next to you buys something on the plane, you're like 30% more likely to buy something too. So just be comfortable. If you don't want to know anything, if you just want to go along with the flow, what your neighbors are doing, and clearly your neighbors are affecting you, just like they affect you whether or not you rent the movie or buy the Bottle of wine on the airplane, it's the same thing. It's the same psychological stuff going on. I mean, trend following is an outside the box approach. It's novel thinking. This is not conventional. It's conventional once you know it. It's conventional once you execute. Big choices out there. Great big choices. I love these. I love this. I love it. Who knows what will happen? But damn it, if you don't have a plan, you have to understand there's a very good chance you could get dealt a hand that leaves you in a really unhappy place. Nobody can call the top. No one can call the bottom. No one can predict tomorrow. What you can have is a diversified portfolio with a trend following strategy that allows your winners to run and allows your losers to be cut short. That's what you've got. That's the only thing you've got that's worth a damn. And how lucky have we all been for this podcast in 2015 to have some of the brightest trend following minds on the show. Just great insights. And on top of that, the psychological component. That's the reason I bring on so many people from the psychology space. And I do see some critics out there. Usually these are people that are probably stuffed away in their mother's basement, naked, fat, I don't know, eating Cheerios all day long and sucking on Snickers and doing weird stuff. Who knows? But anyone that doesn't understand why these brilliant psychologists have been on my show in 2015, stop listening. Go away. Just go back to trusting the system, buy and hold. You don't need to listen to brilliant psychologists talking about the mind. You don't need to listen to Laurie Santos. You don't need to listen to Gerd Gigenrenzer. You don't need to listen to Daniel Kahneman or Barry Schwartz. Not useful. Just go away. So what happens next? Where does it all unfold? Well, no one knows. That's the joy of it. That's the fun of it. We don't know what's going to happen. Put yourself in a position that when the unthinkable, the unimaginable happens, you're not hurt too bad, that you're still alive, that you don't bleed out. You know, that the tourniquet doesn't have to be so tight that all the blood just goes. Long the S&P, buy and hold, is a form of trend following. It's trend following with no exit. Trend following with no exit. And that's what this comes down to. Are you going to exit ever? Or will the market force you to go down before you exit? See, those people that really think through, all the people we read about in the original Market Wizards books, it was all about cutting your losses short. You have to have chips. You have to have dollars. You have to have something to trade with. You need to have some marbles left in the bag to play the game. Not only do you need the marbles left in the bag to play the game, you need to have marbles upstairs in the old cranium. You can't allow yourself to go so psychologically nuts that when a downturn happens, you break down, you fall apart. The seams come undone. I feel so fortunate, though, in the last year. The guests on my show for 2015, no other podcasts in the world curated with that guest list, not even close. It doesn't exist. It has not happened. I'm very fortunate. We're all very fortunate. Two things last here. A discount for those people out there looking for some assistance in their trend following trading. My flagship product, for the first 25 people that respond, I'm offering special pricing. Simply drop me an email to info at trendfollowing.com, and I will gladly forward you the discount information. First 25 people, so if you're interested, move your feet or you will lose your seat or not even get the seat. Second, give me a review on iTunes. Come on. You can slam me, you can sham me, you can say something nice even. But go put a review on iTunes. If you do, for your effort, I will send you a DVD and CD of Trend Following Extras to your home or office, anywhere around the world. I don't care where you live. Well, if it's a really crazy address that I know never gets through, you won't get one. But by and large, I'm going to send it anywhere. That's a great deal, right? All kinds of free extra insights, educational materials related to trend following trading. On to my guest today, Travis Jamison. What a fun personal story for me. So I go on this tour last year of Asia, starting in 2013. I'm in like 10 countries. And at some point in time, I was in Malaysia, and I was supposed to go to Korea next, and I didn't. And I had this around the world fare that I could adjust easily. So I'm in Malaysia, and I'm like, I'm going to Vietnam. I'm just going to Vietnam. No plan, didn't know a soul. I just went. You know, the American going to the communist country of Vietnam. I just went. A little tricky scenario on getting a visa, or at least there's not really tricky, but there's a process. I land, go on a motorbike tour. Really cute girls driving on motorbikes. Good stuff, fun stuff. But then I was at a coffee shop just doing some work. It was a really nice coffee shop called Luzine's. And I was chatting with someone, I don't know, some complete stranger. And this guy walked in, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", very athletic looking, handsome guy. And somebody asked him what he did. I was not really sure why they were asking what he did, but he was sitting close enough to me for me to overhear the conversation. And he said SEO. And that was all he said. He said, look, I can't talk right now. I'm working on something. Well, I thought that was interesting. There's an American guy working on search engine optimization in Saigon. I didn't get a chance to talk to him that day, but about 2 or 3 weeks later, I saw him in this same place. And I just walked up to him and I said, hey, who are you? What do you do? My name is Mike, da-da-da-da-da, I do this. We struck up a friendship. He introduced me to quite a few, almost an entire community of location-independent entrepreneurs. And look, I don't have a particular location. I like Asia, I like America, I like Europe, wherever I feel comfortable that day. But anyways, he introduced me to this network of location-independent entrepreneurs. A lot of people like myself, a lot like the fund managers I know, except not necessarily in that business, doing something completely different. And Travis does something very different. So we've known each other now for well over a year, and we saw each other in Bangkok this fall of 2014. And I said, hey, I want you to come on my show. Not necessarily to talk about your techniques and how you assist businesses with understanding the process of search and helping people in search. But I'd like for you just to talk about search. This ubiquitous notion of like, hey, we go to Google and we search for something. And so here's this guy, Travis. Travis knows how this works. He knows the nitty-gritty behind it. I first got exposed to search in 1995, 1996. You had to know about it. There was no choice. And I've never stopped knowing about it. It doesn't make a difference what your discipline is, what your business is. Everyone has to put up a presence online, whether it's a combination of a website, whether it's a podcast, whether it's Facebook or it's Twitter. Everyone is looking for you. I mean, if you're not worth looking for, you're going to have a pretty boring, unsuccessful life. So you better make it so people are looking for you. You better do something interesting. So I wanted to have Travis on to talk about search, to break this apart. Great conversation, insights that I've not put on this podcast before. Definitely not a trend following conversation, but definitely a conversation that any trend following trader, any entrepreneur for that matter, any business person for that matter, will learn from. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Travis Jamison. going on?
I'm just hanging out, man.
Just hanging out. We had a little storm there, huh?
Yeah. It was surprising and kind of nice at the same time.
Yeah, we really kind of getting lucky in the weather finally. The winter finally gives us something that's a little bit more like the seasons in the States, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. It sucks though. This time of year, the sun is rarely in my pool. I mean, total first world problem, I know, but it's a problem nonetheless.
Oh, you hear those little violins playing right now. Oh, life is difficult. Hey, listen, let's talk about the key thing today, search. We had this kind of mini conversation about a month ago in Bangkok, and I just said, I wanted to have you on just to talk about search. And I'm not really sure how it's going to go or how we're going to break it apart, but I'm sure we will. But I think one of the first things that I would love to get at with you is just your fascination with search. I mean, and look, to paint the picture for the audience, I think most people probably think of a techie that's maybe involved in search and these types of things as some Jabba the Hutt-like creature locked in a basement, nursing 400 pounds of, something. And you don't fit that mold, my friend. You're out of 6'2", 6'3", you do not look like a techie nerd, but I know deep down you clearly are. So where did this fascination with search start with you? What was the first thing that triggered?
Without a doubt, the initial interest was simple. It has nothing to do with like a futurist agenda or idealist principles. It was simply capitalism. That's it. My first startup was a dietary supplement company. And so I went and saved up and manufactured my first batch and actually started this company. And then it's like, well, how do I get this in front of people? I mean, it seemed like such a daunting and impossible task. Like, how will anyone actually know this product exists? You can't just show up at your local drugstore and go, here you go, sell it for me. And so I saw search as a way to reach people in a way that they actually wanted to be reached. Like, think of this thought experiment. Create a flyer for advertising something, let's say an accounting service. And you talk about how great it is and how much money you can save and et cetera. And in the first scenario, you go out and you give it to people. And look at their reactions. I mean, you're buying ads for this stuff. You're passing it out. People are kind of desensitized to that. Like, yeah. Someone else selling us something. Modern society is totally desensitized to so many forms of advertising. The trust is lost. But in the second scenario, like imagine someone recommends your services to them. Right? Someone's looking for an accountant, and you've been recommended. They find you. The total role changes here. Now you're sought after.
The finding you is like a recommendation, though.
Exactly. And the search provided that. They would find me like, oh wow, well he's recommended in Google. This must be legit. I should buy this product. You're immediately held at a higher regard.
Okay, you're a complete newbie though. You have this product, and anybody listening can quickly see if they have a pulse that we could be talking about widgets. It's irrelevant that what we're talking about, the particular product, dietary supplements. But you wanted to get that in front of people. What started the process? How did you start to get under the hood, so to speak?
I was searching around. I'd hired some firms in India to try and help do this stuff with me. I had bought ads and everything had failed. And just by luck, I came across few places on the internet talking about this, and it really clicked my mindset. So I was
talking about what, Travis? Exactly
about search engine optimization, how to manipulate these rankings more or less. That's what I liked. Historically, I've been a poker player. I'm not much anymore because I like business better. Historically, a poker player and very mathematical with everything. And with the search engines, it's data. It's not guessing. Right, here's another thought experiment like we can try. In the brick and mortar world, it's a lot more guessing, which I don't like as much. So if you have that same tax service and you're going to open it, you have to guess will it work. You have to open an office, which is insane to begin with. You have to then try to advertise and tell friends and like leverage your soul for a Yellow Pages ad, which is kind of useless anyway. And then you sit, wait, and pray and like, God, I hope this business works. But in the search engine world, it's much more data oriented. So I can evaluate the search volume for like a relevant keyword. So New York accountant, New York bookkeeping, something like that. And after that, it's just math. Just like you were playing poker, the best thing to do, you can say the best thing for this. So New York accountant gets 1,000 searches a month. If I'm at the number one spot, I can expect, 500 plus visitors. If I can convert my site at 2%, then I can have, 10 visitors a month of recurring income. And if I keep those clients at an average of 24 months, then you can do the math. Multiply that by your profit, and you can immediately get a snapshot of how profitable this can be if just that one thing is secured.
Let me go back to a word you used, manipulate. Manipulate, I'm sure for some of the audience, their immediate thought is negative. But manipulate is not good or bad, and it can be very good. And manipulating, as long as it's in the rules, is fine. Of course, there's going to be some ways to manipulate that are not in the so-called rules. Why don't you talk about the idea of manipulation?
All right. The Google rules, that's a big thing to begin with. People are very passionate about each side of the fence on this. People talk about people like me who manipulate search engine rankings as they're bad sometimes, and sometimes as if it's normal. A lot of people try to treat Google as like an authority. It's like Google's like, I don't know, like the encyclopedia or something. It's like you shouldn't manipulate what it says. But I think that people forget that Google's just a business. It's a business, and it's a place to market. Just like you do your best to create the best ad to people, create the best television commercial to influence people's decisions, the same thing in Google. You're just doing the best you know how in order to influence your ranking so you get in front of the most people. Just like that.
Before Google, frankly, I was using Alta Vista and InfoSeek and Excite, and this was where I got excited about these things. But clearly today, the big game is Google. And why don't you talk about Google as a monopoly, and why don't you talk about some of the competition?
Well, I would actually really like to hear some of the stuff you have to say about, the search engines. That was before my time, some of the stuff you were using when you first got started, and it's a totally different ballgame. But now Google's amazing. I mean, there's a few different types of search engines kind of around still. The most prominent is the crawler-based, as we call them, which is just like Google. They work by they crawl or spider the web, and so they go around to all the pages that they can find, and if they think it's quality enough, then they'll add it to their index and their search base, and so that helps it connect everything. And the most simplified form, it's kind of like it's checking out the content on each page. It's checking out the structured data, like what does this page say the title's about? What does the address of this page say it's on? And then it checks out the relationships between the other pages on the site and the other sites in Google's index, which is billions, if not trillions. I don't know where it's at. You also have some like human-powered search engines, which are definitely falling out. These are like the old directories, like the Yahoo directory, which used to be huge, and now it's basically useless. You still have some image search engines, which I don't really understand as much how those work. I imagine it's kind of like they're evaluating a fingerprint. They can tell what images are alike, which is kind of scary. Here's a sneaky trick. Find somebody's profile picture, put it in a reverse Google search. You can find their dating sites. You can find all this other stuff they're part of if they reuse that picture. Creepy stuff. And then you have stuff like Siri, which
cover your tracks is what you're saying to
totally,
people.
Totally. Oh, I could talk about that stuff all day. It's getting creepy, actually.
Why don't you talk about, though, expand a little bit more on Google's dominance? Because as you mentioned earlier, Google's just a business. Why don't you talk about the competing nature? Because, Google wants people to buy ads. And I think it's positioned as like we're giving this kind of noble service to humanity. But the reality is those little ads have made quite a few billionaires at Google.
Oh, absolutely. I actually believe that out of all the products and services that Google's ever had, that their ads have been the only thing profitable. I might be wrong at this time, but so Google is the dominant search engine for a reason. They're the best, hands down. Some of the other ones have caught up some, but Google does produce the best results, and they try to filter out the bad a little bit more. Some say they try and filter out the bad search results so that people can get the most relevant stuff, and some say that they filter it out so that people will pay more money for their ads. If you can you can manipulate the rankings, then why do you need to pay Google for their ads?
It's a tricky situation. And I think at least what the audience should be hearing from you is just to be grounded about what's taking place. Google's a great service. You can advertise there if you want. You can attempt to get your web page up higher in the rankings. I think a comment that you made that I'd like to follow up on was you said something that Google, if they think it's quality enough, boy, that we could open that up all day long, what Google's definition of quality is.
So in the most simplest terms, they're just looking for like quality content. Again, how we talked about search engine works, it's checking out the content of the page. You know, if you're searching for blue widgets, does the content of the page talk about blue widgets? And then then the other factor is like votes. So kind of a third party verification. And the votes in this case are links. You know, after this podcast, you're going to link back to my site with a backlink. Google is going to crawl that and they're going to say, oh, well, Mike is linking to Travis. This must make Travis's site more important. And then you have a lot of people doing that, and eventually it'll raise in the rankings because Google's saying this must be important if all these people are talking about it. So that's the most basic part. But now Google's getting so incredibly intelligent. They can tell so much. So the Chrome browser that everybody uses on their computer, it's basically a Google bot. It's just a visual version that you can see. Everything you do, Google is tracking it. They are recording it. They are learning from it. The machine learning is insane. They're putting together relationships of, let's say you own a site and someone's talked trash about your site or reported you, said, oh, these people scammed us or whatever. Even if they don't link to your site, Google still knows this. You know, they're tracking this. They're tracking brand mentions, social mentions, all this stuff. They're tracking how people respond. So if someone goes to a website and then says, no, this isn't good, and clicks back and goes to another website, Google's tracking that. They're learning so much, it's insane. The power they'll have in a few years, I can't even fathom.
Just to interject something here also, you mentioned to me this a few weeks ago, the Epic EPIC browser, which seems to do a decent job of trying to not leave a footprint.
Yeah. So Epic browser is more or less a porn browser 3.0, you could think of it as.
Hold on, you didn't tell me it was a porn browser. Well, so come on, now someone thinks I'm just looking at a lot of porn is what you're telling me.
It's not.
Oh, come on.
Not a porn browser. But
dang, I thought my midget porn habit is now revealed. This is not fair.
No, so Epic browser is it's basically just like the Chrome browser that everybody loves, except it stores nothing. It won't store cookies. It will never remember history. It won't send any data to Google. It's as private as it can be. It has built-in proxies if you want to make a little more secured searches. So that's the whole thing behind it. Although it's not open source yet, and so whether it's true or not, we don't know. I also use the Iron browser. It's I think SBware Iron, and it's another similar Chrome, except it doesn't send any of the data to Google, which in some respects it might be paranoid that you're trying to do that, but in other respects I think it's very smart to limit how much information people are gathering about you, because every time someone is on the internet, there are profiles being developed of you, of your searching history. These cookies that are going to your browser, and some of them can't be deleted. Your search history. Are you logged into Facebook or Gmail while you're searching? Then they know this stuff. Are you using Chrome? They know this stuff. Everything you do is being put into a profile, and it can shape your history. I mean, your future.
Hold on, cookies. What cookies can't be deleted?
I don't know the exact behind it, so I don't want to BS it. Supposedly there are some cookies that can't be deleted. It's not like the normal cookies you would think of, but it's some tracking that just can't.
They're hiding something somewhere.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
Okay, let me get back to another issue here too. Talking about search, and for my example, my world. And since I don't have your experience and your understanding, but I've got a little bit more than the average guy, I've always just said to myself, let's just try and keep things honest. Not because I'm necessarily a perfect guy or anything, but I figure since Google is allocating who knows what resources to try and find people doing dishonest things, it seems better from a business perspective to stay as honest as you can. And from my perspective, I always just viewed honest as like, okay, I'm going to create content that I hope people like. And if and when until I find my way to have the experience of someone like you, that's the best that I can do. Is that mindset completely crazy?
Parts of it are crazy.
Okay.
So
that's why we're talking today.
Yeah. So I do agree. Creating good quality content that people like is essential. It's absolutely essential. But also the time has come where just creating content is just not enough. Google has, created a bias towards larger authority sites. And if you want to compete with them, then you have to optimize in other ways, which includes like building links and stuff like that. If you just write good content, you're not going to get found. No one's going to know about you unless you have something so amazing that it creates a buzz and you get lucky.
In this day and age, you're really making the case that whether they want to come knock on your door or find someone with some experience in your world, it's really difficult as a solo entrepreneur just to wake up and say, hey, I've got my new widget, come buy it.
Yeah, it absolutely not. I mean, even when I got started, that time had passed. Everyone's manipulating the search engines in some way or another. There's just varying degrees of that. So at the most basic level, you have what's called a title tag. And whenever you Google something, the main line of all the results is the title tag. It's what you're telling Google your page is about. And my title tag, search engine optimization. I'm manipulating the results. I'm telling Google, this is what you should think my site's about. But then you can go far more into the manipulation by, creating a lot of backlinks that you have manufactured yourself in order to rank you. That's a pretty extreme version. And there's all kinds of ways in the middle. But no matter what, you're manipulating the results. But it's not manipulating like you would manipulate some person. It's just what's displayed on some website.
Yeah, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, if you want to try and reach people, and it gets back to your earlier point, is that Google's not the government. They're not some fair, equitable operation. They're a capitalist operation as well.
Yeah, big time.
Let me let you explain a couple terms. Black hat, gray hat. So some people have probably never heard of these, but why don't you explain the idea of black hat, gray hat? Is there a white hat too, I think?
Yeah, there's a white hat. The definitions are very, very blurred. So white. All right, so Google puts out these guidelines that you're supposed to follow. Supposed to. No one does, but you're supposed to, of like the best practices. And in that, they basically say that you should never do anything to try and manipulate the rankings. And so if you're going to be a white hat person, you're going to play exactly by Google's rules. So you have your site, mikesblog.com, and you're just going to write good content and hope the best that Google comes. That's kind of the technical white hat. So it's basically doing nothing except writing.
Field of dreams, build it and they will come.
Yeah. And occasionally it works, but it's rare. Gray hat is what I like to think of myself as a little more. I'm manipulating the rankings a little bit more. So I'm creating links about it. So reaching out. So I know some editor at CNN. I'm like, hey, why don't you slip in a link to my site? Make it rank a little bit higher. That type of thing. And then the black hat, the black hat's where you're manipulating the rankings in a lot more sketchy way. So you have people, hacking sites and inserting links and all this sketchy illegal stuff that you don't really want to mess with. That's my definition. The definitions will change. It all kind of blurs together. Now,
Google puts out the guidelines. They say, this is what we want you to do. Please abide by them. Well, if there's no penalty, why is anyone going to listen? But there are penalties. Why don't you discuss the idea of Google penalties and what can happen for individuals and businesses that go too far? Maybe even give some examples of going too far.
So Google's just trying to stop people manipulating the search engine rankings, and it's a back and forth all the time. And so they're developing, smarter and smarter algorithms with their billions of dollars they have to play with. And these algorithms target what they consider low quality sites. And there's all kinds of different types. So for example, you have the penguin penalty, as it's called. And the most simplest form, think about it, is links. So we've talked about that links pointing to a site are votes of confidence. Well, you can manipulate these links. I can fire up a software I have right now and create, a few 100,000 links in a couple hours. Not a big deal. But Google called on and realized, well, these are obviously spam. They're not providing any value. And so they penalized people using that, as they should have. It's a bunch of crap. There's other penalties like Panda, as they call it, which is a lot more interesting one. It's smart. They're penalizing sites, the actual sites themselves that they deem to be low quality. Not that are low quality, but that Google deems to be low quality. And this is where it gets kind of scary. So if, for example, someone's stolen a bunch of other people's content and put it on their site, they can get devalued, which makes sense. That makes sense to me. If you have bad user engagement, because remember, Google's tracking what people do. So if a lot of people are going to the site and say nah, then leaving, they can do that. But then there's a lot of other things that are there too many ads on the site? People won't like that. Is when you load the site, is the content below? Do you have to scroll down? All these things kind of come into it more where Google will penalize a site.
How do you know if Google has penalized you?
Your rankings go away. You no longer rank for your keywords. It depends. So
is it literally just you just wake up one day and you're like, okay, I'm gone. I'm no longer in the top 10?
Yeah. And that's the easiest way to know. Sometimes Google will do manual penalties. Some manual searcher or sometimes even a algorithm will check out your website and say, you've been breaking the rules. We're going to penalize your site. And you'll get a notification in Webmaster Tools if you signed up and used that. But most of the time now, it's just not like that. They penalize your site with the algorithm, and they don't let you know in any way other than the fact that your web traffic just disappeared from the search engine.
Now, I just love the Orwellian nature of this. Is there a way once again, I'm just asking questions. This hasn't happened to me. I'm just asking questions as going down the line here. If this does happen to somebody, and let's say it's a quality website, somebody made the wrong decision of some sort and they crossed swords with Google and Google doesn't like it and now they've been penalized, now they've been dropped. Is there any recovery or is it the black hole of death?
It depends. It absolutely depends. If you've just messed up a little bit, then yeah, you can recover. Not necessarily quickly. Some sites will recover quickly. Some sites can take a year, which can, completely destroy a business in that year's time if they're too dependent on the search engine.
Does that literally mean that there's a forgiving element to Google's algorithms?
Some. But even Matt Cutts, who was the head of the Google spam team, he said himself, if it's too bad, you're not, just start over, start new. So not necessarily. But this brings into question all kinds of scary things that people aren't thinking about. Negative SEO, your competitors doing stuff to you. So we've talked about all these software links and these crappy links that you can create that can eventually hurt your site. You can also do that to competitors. And now you get into all kinds of questions. Google destroying people's businesses even though the people were playing by the rules. All this different stuff.
Interesting. I've seen that as an author. Look, I have my fair share of critics, and people are welcome to hate me and have little dolls and jam pins and needles in them and light them on fire and I don't know, and then rest in bed with the doll. I don't know what they do with the doll, okay? But I do know a fair share of my critics that write book reviews are not just regular readers. They're legitimately knowing for a fact. It doesn't really bother me. It's just kind of insidious that they are actually, in some cases, were once friends, in many cases, competitors. I think that's just something that the average public, given that we trust these systems of search and review, we don't often realize how nefarious this whole process under the hood can get.
Oh, yeah. If people aren't, experienced or trained in this type of stuff, you have no idea how much everything's being manipulated. How many reviews are being manipulated everywhere. How much the information you are seeing is being manipulated everywhere. By people like me half the time.
Hey, talk about, without getting into too much detail, I kind of jotted down here before this conversation some of the Google updates, but I'm just curious if there's a point or two from each of the three, or even just one of them, that you might want to elaborate on that kind of changed your world. And this would be some Google updates that were affectionately called Panda. You mentioned Penguin. There's another one called Hummingbird. Why don't you pick one of those three, or give me a bullet point for all three? How did those affect what we see? It's a big story for all three. I know you're not going to give it all today, but it's a lengthy thing. But if you can just kind of like wet people's whistle.
Hummingbird was actually pretty huge. I think it was released maybe like a year ago or something. Hummingbird was the first major change to the algorithm since 2001. It changed the way that the algorithm thinks in a lot of ways. So before, it would just search out certain keywords, develop the results based on that. Now with Hummingbird, it's kind of taken in the entire phrases. It's much more interested in the intent. What is your intent in the search, instead of just what do the phrases mean? That might sound pretty basic, but on the massive, massive scale of what Google is, it's a pretty big thing. And that also introduced the knowledge graph, which is, now if you Google certain stuff, like go and Google, Ron Paul, Google him, and what's going to pop up? I can go ahead and tell you at the top of the page, there's going to be all this information that Google is displaying already. Not another website. They're crawling this other website and displaying this information. It's kind of, they know what you're looking for. And this is a big change. A lot of ethical questions about that. Google displaying the information instead of from the sites. The Panda update, that's not really updating the search. It's more of like a penalty type thing. They're trying to stop low quality sites, which is it's usually not a bad thing. Probably more times than not, they're getting people who are making low quality sites, who are trying to break the rules, whatever. But sometimes really innocent people get caught. And sometimes people's entire livelihoods and businesses disappear after that. Penguin is when people have just broken the rules, building their own backlinks, which building backlinks is fine if you know what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing.
Travis, do you have a feeling or a gauge on how large? I mean, look, we can all pull up google.com and there's that ubiquitous search box, the only thing there. I mean, the page is not cluttered at all. It's been that way basically since day one. But behind the scenes, clearly there's a lot going on. Do you have a handle for how big the team is at Google that's involved in search?
None. Not at all. But you could probably Google it and their knowledge graph would tell you. But I can tell you it's some of the smartest minds in the world. Google, it's already changed the world, and it's going to continue to change it even more. The smartest scientists, they flock to Google. One, they pay incredibly well, but they're also shaping the future. It's cool stuff to work on.
What's the best thing, the best first step? There's a lot of people listening. Frankly, they're running very large funds, or they're starting out traders, or they're just entrepreneurs. But even some of the biggest funds that I know, I mean, you can look at their web presences and they clearly have no clue. And these guys have made fortunes and they don't know how to go about the process. And it looks like standard issue websites from 10 years ago. And maybe somebody would say, well, hey, Covel, that's what your shit looks like. But like, how would you, anybody out there, any entrepreneur, and everything falling under the headline of entrepreneur, small to large, what are some of the best first steps, 3 steps that someone should take, as whether they've got an established business or they're starting out, the 3 best things they can do to attack this issue?
Oof. Probably hire someone. To be honest, it's just kind of complicated stuff. It's not easily understood, and if you do it wrong, it'll have far more negative consequences than good. If people are going to do it themselves, learn how to structure your web pages properly. Use the best meta descriptions and title tags and good quality content, media rich, engage your readers. The more engaged your readers are, the more the search engines will give you some benefits. That's the most important thing. Links, which are essential, you're never going to rank without backlinks pointing to you. I couldn't even cover this in the podcast. If you don't know what you're doing, don't even touch it. Like, you'll just ruin your site. If you wanted to do something, I guess maybe create your Facebook and your Twitter pages and all those little social things, the LinkedIn, and link to your site and try to create an audience. But really, that's the bullcrap that everybody says that just doesn't work. I can't just tell you on the podcast. It's too detailed. Without,
like I said from the beginning, I'm not trying to compete with your knowledge of this, but I figure for things that I don't know and I don't understand, I try and stay one step ahead to the best of my ability, even though I do need to slide into your world a little bit more. But creating a podcast, for example, that for me was a way that I felt like, okay, here's a way that I can get some new interest in my world. I didn't necessarily plan it, but it's kind of worked out that way. Another way to bring people in, frankly, without spending much money, really. I mean, except to produce the podcast.
Well, see, I consider that more like general marketing, and that is something that can absolutely help your search engine results. You just got to get found. You got to get noticed. You got to have people talking about you, buzzing about you, because that'll have people linking to you. You know, I can guarantee, since you started this podcast, 2 years ago or something like that, I can only imagine how many people have linked to your different episodes because they've touched people.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. If you can create a buzz about yourself in any way, do it. But that's also like the long way around. You're doing all this other stuff in order to try and manipulate search engine rankings that it's kind of could be considered a poor use of time.
I think I just got backslapped there.
Well, if you did all this work for your podcast of putting it together for the only sole purpose of influencing search engine rankings, that would be silly.
Clearly not.
Obviously,
Clearly not.
You know, the benefits have been.
Yeah.
You don't care about the search engine results with all the benefits you get from it. So,
hey, let me ask you, as we kind of wind down, I want to ask two things. Just something that maybe you think the audience would really be interested in. You can kind of ponder that for a second, that I've not asked about, but maybe also outline how you perceive search, because this is a daily part of our lives that we really don't think about, which is the main reason I want to have you on today. When we first talked about this conversation, what is the future from your perspective in search?
I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. This is the direction artificial intelligence is heading, most likely. You know, it's doing machine learning now. And so the algorithms are incredibly complex, but a lot of it is the computer. They have, say, like manual reviewers, for example, who go through, and they're just people, and they're searching the internet and doing all this kind of stuff. And the algorithm, the computer, is watching them and learning from their actions. And so it's actually learning. It's machine learning, and it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter. So that is, AI is probably coming from this in some ways, understanding human thoughts and everything they do. You can tell people stuff about yourself, and you always put the best stuff forward, but the search engines know everything. They know everything. You can't hide anything from them, because anything people want to know, they look it up on Google. The data they have is insane. Absolutely insane.
It's going to be part of our lives so much going forward. It's never going to change, and it'll only get more involved, which is the case you're making. Is there anything that I've kind of not brought up today that's something that you like to ponder, things that are the tip of your mind? We've kind of talked about basics today. They're, for you, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, Mike. But probably new for my audience to think about some of these issues in depth. And frankly, now listening to you, I'm sure many people will start Googling things that you've said to find out what the hell you're talking about. But what intrigues you, and what fascinates you, and what keeps you? I mean, I know you build businesses out there and stuff, but what about search in general? Is there something that you think about with you and your team that I've not really talked about today?
I think that, without a doubt, the search engines are changing the path of humanity. There's just no question. You would send me an email talking something about, search engine bias, which changes the information that you're seeing, information that's presented to you. So think about like Facebook. A lot of people will get this one. So, on Facebook, if you look at certain people or pages, or like a friend's status a few times, then the Facebook algorithm is going to start showing you that person's updates more and more and more, and will deprioritize the other people that you ignore. That's an obvious one. Well, Google's in the big search engines are doing that too. It's not quite as evident, but they're still doing it, and it's getting more and more powerful. So like the information that you're exposed to changes based on your location. Where you're at, you're going to be shown different stuff. Your past search history. Remember that sites everywhere are developing an online profile of you that they are putting together, which is scary. So if you're some uber libertarian and you're reading the Sovereign Man blog and listen to Ron Paul and all this stuff, like Google's going to know this. Your cookies are going to know this, your search history, you're logged into Gmail, all this stuff. And so now you're much more likely to keep being shown information related to that. And so now your information is trapped more in a bubble, and that's changing everything. You're not exposed to as much variety. It's like my grandmother back home, the only thing she's exposed to all day long is Fox News. And the same thing can happen to search engines over time. If that's all you're exposed to, then that can completely change your path as a human. You think that's all it is.
I was just thinking about this, like, what is the Google goal? And I would assume it's something simple, which is to essentially sell you more efficiently.
I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what their final goal is.
But I mean, ultimately, search, like we talked from the very beginning, they're a capitalistic enterprise. I mean, to keep improving these algorithms is just to match up either their ads or people that are paying for their ads, to match them up more effectively with us, the person searching for something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, we could talk forever about this stuff. Where can I send people? Where can everybody go to find out more about you? Or should we just keep you like a mysterious 007 character that nobody can find?
Nah, buddy, you have rich friends. SupremacySEO.com. Find me there.
Okay, Travis, thank you very much. And we will see each other soon, sir.
My pleasure.
Take care.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, Trend Following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.